YouTubers slash podcasters. He mostly streams on Twitch, I understand, but then he uploads on YouTube, and that's how I managed to find him. This is the first stream that he's done live on YouTube, and honestly, I mean, I'm kind of a supporter of the YouTube live. I don't really see much advantage to like the Twitch aspect of streaming. I've used it a little bit. I've streamed like to Twitch through different platforms like the Xbox Game Bar stuff and their like other software. And I think I've like monitored it and seen the chat and whatnot. And I think that like the main draw is just that it's more niche and that people who are on Twitch are more likely to be looking for that type of content. So meaning live streams, whereas YouTube, because it has everything, it's just not really caught on yet. I mean, every app is becoming every other app. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. So it's pretty much just a matter of time until every single social media platform has every form of content, and then just like one tiny twist on it. I mean, really, like for instance, the only difference between Instagram Reels and TikTok is that you can go back to and save the Instagram Reels, and I mean, I think maybe there's some differences in the duration and like quality of them, but other than that, there's really no difference other than those things. All right, so I'm not gonna, watch this entire video. I'm not trying to do a response podcast or a reaction podcast, rather. But I'll just let him do his little intro here, and what this is related to is the Atrioc debacle, where essentially, some streamer, I'm not familiar with him, his name is Atrioc, was caught via one of his window tabs. One of the window tabs he had open was a browser to a paid deepfake porn AI site, and beyond that, he had paid for it, and beyond that, he was looking at porn of a fellow streamer that he knew personally. And I mean, it's unprecedented. My friend T-Pin and I have been talking about deepfake porn, or not deepfake porn. Yeah, we're not. It's not like a topic of discussion, but deepfakes in general and AI generated art. And I mean, we were talking about how it's only a matter of time until it becomes difficult to tell what's real and what's not. And I mean, we're already at a point where people only read the title, and the title is enough to go viral. So if it becomes the case where even if it's not perfect, like these deepfakes are getting close enough with enough training data, and that's how these celebrities are getting targeted by this. It's like the AI deepfake that you can create is based on the amount of data that you feed it to train on. So if, I'll expand myself a little bit. If you don't have a lot of data, then you can't really make a convincing deepfake. But the thing is because these people are streamers, there's so much data and footage of their face that it works well, apparently. So, I mean, the truth is that it needs to be there needs to be legislation passed for it. I mean, like regarding it, they're just ahead of the law right now. It's the same thing as, I mean, it's not the same thing as, but it's in the same vein as something like child porn, in that it's a restricted form of media that, well, at least it needs to be restricted. It needs to be talked about and actually addressed, because right now all of these sites are flying in a legal gray area. And I think that the truth is that, I mean, they are able to get them taken down. So I think that it is technically, even right now, illegal in the U.S. and in generally, but not super severely. So, and it's not like they're like people are going to jail over this yet. They're just getting the sites taken down. And let's listen to Dr. K a little bit here.
If you're someone who is like, oh no, this shouldn't be a problem, I don't understand why people are complaining. You think about a single time in your life, and hopefully for the sake of learning this has happened to you, where someone was talking crap about you and other people were hearing it. And how did that make you feel? And now you amplify it literally by 10,000 or 100,000, because that's what happens in scenarios like this. So sometimes on the internet there's drama. And when there's drama, we actually try really hard to steer clear of it. A big part of what we do here at Healthy Gamer is not talk about people. one of our central principles is that we think you should talk to people. And half the problem with the internet right now is that everyone opines, everyone has opinion, everyone says what other people should and shouldn't be doing. We try really hard to step away from that and actually like talk to the people who are involved to hear their experience of this. This is something that I learned to value originally when I was in India, absolutely learned to value it 10 times over as a psychiatrist, that you actually need to talk to people and listen to people about what their experience of a particular thing is. The reason that we're talking about today about non-consensual pornography, deepfakes, revenge porn, all that kind of stuff is because there's a lot of science actually out there which very few people know. The reason that we're choosing to open our mouth.
One of the most important things to take away from this is that people who have revenge porn leaked of them, no matter where they were mental health wise, 50% of them, over 50% of them, skip straight to suicidal ideation. So it's just serious. Like there's serious consequences and harm that's done, and even if it's not illegal or it's in some legal gray area, it doesn't make it right or okay. And what legality is based on is harm. You know, fundamentally speaking, at least it's supposed to be. So, you know, if just because the law is lagging behind reality, it doesn't mean that we should just, you know, ignore it. So let me just talk a little bit about this, my thoughts on this. Because he even said, everyone opines, everyone has an opinion. And just wanted to talk a little bit generally about opinions in general, because something that you'll hear a lot is that people are entitled to their opinion. And I think that it's true, and it's also not. And you might recoil when I say that you're not entitled to an opinion, but it's really complicated. I think a lot about belief and like just human psychology and how we process and understand things in general. And an opinion is deeply mutual or intimate with that. Like it's entangled. You can't extract one from the other. Like your thoughts. One way to think about it is that your thoughts become your actions. If you can't, so even though people say that you can't control your thoughts, if you think about something long enough, it usually results in some type of action relating to it. And it's I mean, where and how to draw that line, and like what people are actually in control of, and what impulses and desires they can or can't take control of and manipulate and even understand is complicated. But an example that I like to think about, and why I made this the thumbnail for this weird abstract, I put in propeller plane into the art generator, and that was what it came up with. But just the idea that like what opinions are we really entitled to? Like what is the difference between an opinion and a belief? What's the difference between a belief and knowledge or truth or scientific fact or general consensus? Things like this. Like, where are these lines drawn? Like, what makes them different? What makes them different? What makes them the same? For instance, am I allowed to have the opinion that planes can fly without wings, or something like that, or that, and even to go further, it's like, because then you extrapolate that and you realize that a rocket is basically a plane without wings, and if it goes fast enough, it will still fly. But the point is, like, can I have an opinion about the way that the world is if it's completely disparate from the world? So, like, can I have the opinion that the sky is actually green? Like, is that an okay opinion to have? And not meaning that what we're calling blue is actually green, but that, no, everyone is actually mistaken, and actually I only have the correct information, and it's that the sky is actually the color green, and everyone else is being deceived, and that's just the way it is. And I mean, without even having to go further into how someone would believe that, is it okay for someone to believe something like that? Is it okay to have the opinion that the earth is flat, and that the government is mind controlling everyone, and this is some kind of weird experiment or whatever they believe? Like, is it okay for me to have that opinion? Is it okay for me to have the opinion that square wheels are the best, and that they're the most efficient? It's like, at a certain point, your opinion bifurcates with reality. Like, and it's not, and this then will tie into regret, which I have next on my list here. Just the idea that, I'm trying to explain this in a few different ways, and it's really still baking in my brain here of like how exactly to think about this. I think about concepts like regret and remorse a lot. What's interesting about regret is that the way that we think about it is pretty common sense, in that, oh, I regret making that decision. And the weird thing about it, though, is that you can't really know how the world would have turned out if you had chosen something else. You're kind of comparing yourself to an imaginary speculative timeline when you're doing things like that. And I guess that my point and like thing that I've had trouble actually ironing out in my brain is just how do we do that, and what's the difference between regret and remorse? So like my gut intuition when I think of remorse versus regret is that remorse is, it's not necessarily that I regret the decision, but you regret the outcome of the decision, or you regret the unforeseen consequences, and usually like the harm or hurt that you caused the world or someone else. And I think that like it's important that we kind of start talking a little bit more about the nitty-gritty aspects of how we think and feel and talk. And I mean, Dr. K is a good proponent of that, and trying to separate the action from the person, or the circumstance from the person. And if you haven't checked out Dr. K, you definitely should. He's especially his one on ADD, ADHD, whatever you want to call it, different things but very similar. He describes ADD/ADHD as being like having a hunter brain, versus what's considered normal or normative is more of like the farmer brain. So like, and really what's defined as normal or acceptable is defined by the structure of our society. And it's like, just because you have a hunter brain, or ADD, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't mean that you're somehow defective or less of a person. It's just that you are built to do different things and thrive in a different environment. It's great. You should definitely check it out. I'm not sure. I should have linked it. It just it hadn't occurred to me. But I like to get back to the opinion thing. It's like everyone is going to have an opinion about this Atrioc case, and later, I also linked here Ethan Klein, because Ethan Klein, he covered it on his podcast, and then he, at pretty much the worst possible moment, decided to just completely ruin it and let his impulsive mind make his guy Zach play this ridiculous song, right when she's like in her heartfelt speech. What do you want to call it? I mean, outreach, like call for help and compassion that she was doing. And I mean, I really want to like Ethan Klein. I do pretty regularly watch his podcast, but I didn't like his apology either. Like, he wasn't looking at the camera. He wasn't, and it's not like that's all that matters, but I didn't think that it was. I mean, he started it. It was like he put himself in the situation, and like I have to say, like, even though clearly totally different, what would you call it, offenses, like between him and Andrew Callahan, but I personally had a lot more respect for Andrew Callahan's apology than I did for Ethan Klein's. And I mean, it's hard to explain why that is. I mean, without like watching them back to back, and I'm just not interested in doing that. I mean, you should you come up with your own opinion, but it's like, I think that really like the place for opinions is it's kind of like in a wishy-washy area. Like we can't like have opinions about the shape of the earth, or like we shouldn't, and like it gets really slippery, because it's like the second that you say something like that, you're starting to say, oh well, there are things such as thought crime, and that's really worrisome, because we don't want to have thought crimes, but this is why like people have the inclination to think of things that way, because the thing is that if I have the opinion, you know, the thought, and try to make you believe that actually planes without wings are the best, and the only reason why they haven't flown yet is because we didn't do some ritual right. Like, the second that I like have that opinion and try to basically make it reality, then that crosses the line. So it's like, for instance, the classic example against free speech, like you can't shout fire in a crowded theater. And why? Well, because it can cause real life harm, right? You can get stampeded and people can get killed. And but it's like, well, what if I was mistaken? What if, you know, like what if I didn't realize that it was actually just a small kitchen mishap, and that the smoke that I saw wasn't that the theater was on fire? Like, these things would be hashed out, you know, in the court hearing that would, you know, hopefully occur afterwards when everything died down and it wound up not being terrible and hopefully no one got hurt or died. But the thing is that bad ideas can manifest as real world problems, and so the second that, like, you don't want to especially like squash experimental thoughts, like, just, you know, you have to be able to imagine scenarios, you have to be able to entertain concepts, but like, at what point does entertaining something become your opinion? At what point do you accept it? And like, then beyond that, at what point does it become an action? It's complicated. It's super complicated. I just think that we should try to be a little bit more careful about how rigid and what our opinions are based on. So like, everyone, like Dr. K says that everyone's going to opine and have an opinion about this case with Atrioc and Cutie, I think her name is Cutie Pie, on Twitch, and it's like, I mean, here I'm having an opinion, or, you know, thoughts, whatever you want to call it, about the situation. Never met either of them, you know. I mean, and the thing is that I should be able to have, you know, you would think, and we talk about the entitlement to an opinion about the situation. And why is that? Well, because I'm a human being, and I also live on this planet, and I'm in this universe, and I have 2 arms and 2 legs, and I have similar human psychology, and, you know, whatever. It's like, because of the Venn diagram being like very on, like, almost a circle, and then beyond that, us occupying the same planet, and then having to abide by the same rules. Yeah, like, that's the entitlement to the opinion, okay? But like, am I entitled to the opinion that the sky is green? I don't know. It's like, and at what point does my opinion that the sky is green become a problem and potentially hurtful? We got to talk it out. We got to, you know, we got to think about it, and like, I mean, I keep coming back to this concept, learning about a personality disorder, borderline personality, and this concept in it called splitting. And I mean, it's not, I don't think it's a common thought, but I mean, I see just our society as being that way. Like, everything about it. Like, we can't have a nuanced view or a gray area. Like, none of that is allowed. And even in the form of your opinion, like, your opinion is either, you know, black against Atrioc, and he's horrible and evil and whatever, or he's completely scot-free, and she should just get over it, and it's no big deal, and no one got hurt and whatever. It's like, well, it's not either of those things. It's like, it is somewhere in the middle, and beyond that, we're anyone who's opining about it is using, yeah, okay, sure, we have the Venn diagram that's mostly a circle, and we can talk about it, but we're not there on the ground talking to the person. We're not there, you know, this isn't a new thought. Lots of people say things like this. Well, let's just try to be a little bit more compassionate and try to withhold our judgment just a little bit. And like, it's funny because I know I made the judgment just now that I thought that Ethan Klein's apology was pretty lacking. And like, here's the thing. It's like, I say that with the intent of hoping that he will take that as constructive criticism and try to understand better why it came off as disingenuous and not good enough for me. Okay. And, yeah, so I don't know. I really want to like everyone. You know what I mean? It's just like I think that as long as we can be trying to change in the right direction, then that's the right answer. But it just doesn't seem like we're in a holding pattern here where it's like it's all or nothing. It's like and truly, like, no matter what it is, whether it's an idea or a person or a company, you're the hero long enough to become the villain. You know, it's like, damn, it's tough. So related to this, I watched this Craig Ferguson video. I don't know much about this guy, I really don't. But I've watched a couple like random clips of him. I'm not necessarily on his show. He is a comedian. I think I watched some stand up. This is great though. I don't think I should get copyright claim for this. I'm just going to start experimenting a little bit more because I do want, you know, certain aspects of what I'm commenting on to be in the actual format of this. So.
Day for America, everybody. Happy President's Day, everyone. Happy President. Personalized it for me. Up until then, I got this.
Basically, what he's going to talk about is how he was getting a lot of laughs and a lot of success from making fun of Britney Spears at the time of this. And he just talks about how, I'm not sure, I honestly can't even remember what was the specific event that made him question it, but he just started to feel bad and realized that it was, you know, punching down, basically. And, you'll see.
I was there with his wife and his kids and stuff, and I was like kind of ragging on him on television. I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I feel good about this. It was a look in his eye that bothered me, and I began to think, at what price am I doing this stuff? And I started to think about the effect it was having on real people, and it's been needling at me a little bit ever since. Now I'm as guilty as sin about this. I mean, I made fun of the lady astronaut wearing the diapers when she was driving. That is clearly funny. That is clearly a funny thing. But at the same time, then the mugshot comes in, and I go, this woman's in trouble. She needs help. And then I'm thinking, I don't know how good I feel about this. And I need to do stuff that I feel comfortable with. I want to be able to be funny, but I want to be able to get some sleep. So, and I don't just do this job for the money, I assure you, which is handy because there isn't much in it. But now, I remember it's been happening in the press and the media recently, and particularly in the so-called news outlets. The way the media is looking at the world. I kind of had similar feelings when I used to watch America's Funniest Home Videos. You know, you'd be laughing at the kid falling over, and then you go, wait a minute, put down the damn camera and help your kid. What the hell is wrong with you? And I think we're kind of holding the camera, and people are falling apart. People are dying.
People are still laughing.
Nicole Smith, when she died.
Like, come on, man.
No,
Yeah, this isn't funny.
You know,
Yeah.
it stops being funny. That she's got a 6-week-old kid or 6-month-old kid. What the hell is that? You know, and I'm starting to feel uncomfortable about making.
And like, it's just, we're so desperate as humans to have connection and understanding and be on the good side. And people want to, you know, that's why people laugh together and like want to go to shows like this, because they want to feel good. They want to feel like, you know, the world is okay and it's okay to laugh at it. And then like they're so primed to do that even in the process of talking about these horrible, you know, consequences of modern day society, frankly, people are still laughing. And granted, it can be, I'm not really trying to criticize them. I'm just bringing it up that, you know, what is that? How, like, what's happening here? Like, is it like, there's a thing, you know, called nervous laughter. Laughter is so complex. I don't know.
Making fun of these people, and for me, comedy should have a certain amount of joy in it. It should be about us attacking the powerful people, attacking the politicians and the Trumps and the blowhards and going after them. We should be attacking the vulnerable people. And I think this is totally a mere call, but this is just for me. I think my aim's been off a bit recently. I want to change it a bit. So tonight, no Britney Spears jokes, and here's why. Here's exactly why. Britney Spears. No, this is true. Wait. I'm not doing it. Listen, when the kind of weekend she had, she was checking in out of rehab, she was shaving her head, getting tattoos. That's what she was doing this weekend. This Sunday, I was 15 years sober. So I looked at her weekend, and I looked at my own weekend, and I thought, you know, I'd rather have my weekend. But what she's going through reminds me of what I was doing. It's an anniversary, you start to think about it. It reminds me of where I was 15 years ago when I was living like that. Now, I'm not saying Britney Spears is an alcoholic. I don't know if she's an alcoholic.
Something that's occurring to me now. It's like there's a concept that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with called Schadenfreude, right? And what he's basically describing is we want to feel the sense of validation in that we did the hard thing and we came out on top. That we didn't build a plane without wings and drive it off a cliff. And so we get to celebrate that, and even if it's at the expense of the other person who thought that they were smarter and better. And it's like at a certain point, like especially if someone is like repeatedly losing, it really, I think, is important that we start taking the high road and actually, like, you know, even when the person's plane falls off the cliff, you know, help them build a better one. And, you know, and it gets really tough, especially with humans, because, you know, a lot of them, their plane falls off the cliff and they want to rationalize and figure out how it wasn't, you know, something about their methodology or their opinion that was wrong, you know. And at a certain point, it's like, well, you can't. You've always heard the saying, you can't help someone who doesn't want help. Well, that's the phenomena there. Let me make sure this is a weird sound. Oh boy, I might have to mess with this printer quick. 1 second. Sorry about that.
Like or not, but she clearly needs help. And now what I do
Not
is
funny.
I speak for myself. There's speculation. There's always speculation if you're on television about somebody's behind it, or the corporation, the production people. There's not. This is me, all right? It's me and you, right? I'm trying to be honest with you. I'm not an expert on alcoholism or anything else, but I am an expert on my own story. I was there when it happened. Well, I was present. The tape recorder wasn't running until February the 18th, 1992. It made me think about the last Christmas that I had when I was a drinking man. Hopefully the last one I was a drinking man.
All right, we're gonna move on now. You should definitely watch the rest of this if you're at all interested. This is a good video. Nepotism. So, I mean, it's an important concept and topic to cover and think about, at least at some point, and I want to cover it in detail later on down the road. But just a quick thought that I had is that nepotism really is tied into if you watched my last podcast, the 42069 effect. If you have a better name or idea of or way of explaining that idea, please let me know. I don't know if you know whatever is sticky enough, you know, like whatever is 60, 90, 420 enough if to come up with a way to remember this, a term. But the idea of nepotism is similar to, we can even tie it back to the plane again. So the idea is, okay, there's been a standard or a meme or a way of thinking that has been established. And the idea is generally things like that come into existence for the purpose of fulfilling some type of function. So in my Belief as Technology video, I talk about how our beliefs are basically programs to then interact with the world in an algorithmic and predictable way. So, you know, number of inputs, including my action and interaction with the world, and then there some output that's predictable comes out. And when we think about nepotism is kind of just, well, who are your parents? What's your last name? Like how much of a lineage do you have, or success rate in your family? And it's for so many reasons. So it's like, I mean, partially genetic, partially cultural, partially just family structure and upbringing style, lifestyle, like geographical route, like where in the world you're from, all these things. So it's just, the idea is, okay, you're from a successful, well-known powerful family, you're much more likely to get a job, because that holds innate value in and of itself. And a way to think about it is that, well, this plane has actually flown. This plane has been flown off the cliff, and it has, you know, produced that desirable result. And so whether it's tradition or nepotism or the 420-69 effect, it's all kind of similar. It's what we're used to. It's what's worked in the past, or you know, and this is what's so important. Like something inane or pointless that's tied to no deeper root or meaning, like 420 or very little. Like even though it's so sticky and mimetic and it sticks in our brain and becomes a part of how we think, it's meaningless. It has only as much meaning as we attribute to it. Whereas the design of a plane wing actually has like inherent like fundamental value and usefulness in it, like because of the literally the geometric shape of the design. It needs to be a certain way, or it fundamentally will not work. Like a boat needs to be constructed a certain way, or it will not work. It can't have hulls. It needs to be buoyant. Like and the thing is that we want to be accepting of different lifestyles, okay? But people have come up with lots of different lifestyles, and there are varying results for those lifestyles. The beliefs that are tied up in, and the traditions and the nepotism and all these things that we have in our mind and set up as tradition now are both helpful and detrimental. And as the world continues to evolve, things that used to be useful, traditions that used to make sense and be valid, wear out. They no longer apply. And if we don't pay attention to that and keep an open dialogue and conversation, then it's inevitable. It's the same thing as the deepfake porn going, the law lagging way behind that stuff. It's the same exact thing. This is, oh, yeah. I mean, actually, it's a great 15-minute video. If you don't follow Wisecrack, you definitely should. All their stuff is great. All right, moving on. This was a great series. This guy is the man. I'm not sure how many parts there are. There's like 4 half-an-hour segments here with this rabbi. He's brilliant, and yeah, I mean, if you want to like cut right to the nitty-gritty and frankly, from my perspective, more interesting parts of Judaism, then Kabbalah, like, definitely watch this to begin with, and then I'm going to investigate a little bit more, I think. Yeah, super cool. Good to know, you know, even if you're not a religious person, it's like, it's good to know how the world is. So this is interesting. I'm sure you've heard about this, the Mr. Beast controversy. If you don't know, basically Mr. Beast used his giant pools of money to heal the cataracts of 10,000 people, right? Yeah, or no, 1,000 people. I think the surgery was like $10,000. So 10,000 times 1,000, quite a bit of money. And but it immediately started getting backlash. And like, first of all, for the actual, did they use it as their? Let me see here. I think he kept it as the thumbnail, which is pretty ballsy.
I built 2 massive.
Yeah, he kept it. All right, yeah. So you could see it here. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to laugh, but I mean, it is kind of, it's morbidly funny. It's like, what does that mean? I don't know. Look at this. Like, what is? And so, here's the thing. You've heard of the clickbait. You know, that's what this is. That's what thumbnails are. It's hit its peak of like artistic expression in the form of YouTube thumbnails, but I mean, it's in everything. It's in titles. It's in the wordage that you use. It's in the, you know, using buzz terms and whatever. It's like, and then but all of that stuff is fundamentally a limbic hijack, is what it's called. And what we're trying to, it's like a race to the bottom of the brainstem, where we're trying to play on your emotions and the most powerful driving factors of your psychology. And so how that like manifests is big happy smiley face and, you know, show my teeth, and then something confusing or curious, or making you want to know what it is. Things like this. I mean, it's here's the frustrating thing, and so this is how it's actually relevant. So when you get into a game like that, when you're playing that race to the bottom of the brainstem, which frankly all of human society is kind of turning into that, and always has been a part of that. It's been a part of human society since the beginning of time, but it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a self-fulfilling loop. It's a program that can't be broken out of. And like the second that anyone adopts the lowest common, adopts a low standard or any means necessary mentality, then that spreads and becomes the lowest common denominator. Because the problem is that if you don't make a thumbnail like this, then you can't compete. You just will not pull ahead in the algorithm, because you need to be able to limbically hijack someone and make them click on your video, even if it is disingenuous and misleading. It's like, as long as you can get your foot in the door, then that's better than not, and that's how business is and everything. Breaking points is great. I think I brought up breaking points in my previous videos. I don't know, I watch them pretty regularly. I should be subscribed, but they upload like sporadically and like in big chunks, and I don't care for that. And they always come up in my home feed anyway. This is great. So one of the best videos that I've had discussion about was by this guy, where he was originally he got like early access to DALL-E 2, and that was how I was introduced to it. I'm not even sure how long ago this was now. It feels like ancient history, but it's been pretty recent development. And he was just showing some shoe designs that this AI made, and this was like before it was released to the public. And my buddy Teepin and I did a whole podcast pretty much surrounding this. And I mean, we could see this and then see like the deep fakes coming out, and I mean, this is only a matter of time before this stuff is so ubiquitous. And really, what you need to do is arm yourself with knowledge, like both in an offensive and a defensive sense. Like, I understand, and I'm compassionate for artists who are upset about this and feel like it's infringing on their rights. But at the same time, it's like there's too much profit involved in motivating this. Like, you're not going to be able to stop it. And like, I don't mean to be like callous or cold, but like, I think that if you're worried about a situation like that, you should really like follow this guy and watch this video like specifically. It's 3 days old now, but it's incredible. I mean, he uses the AI as a tool, not as an end all be all, not as the like, okay, job's done. It's like, no, you use it as iteratively and intelligently, and then you extract from it what you want.
Insane sunglasses inspired by earth, wind, water, and fire. We're going to use the best 3D printing technology, the most advanced software.
The printers that they have in this are insane. I know basically nothing about how that works. I mean, it's probably similar, but to a normal FDM. But
as you gain knowledge, you start to focus on creating designs that you know will work well based on your past experience. For once, I wanted to create completely crazy designs just for fun and to see if I learned anything from it. At the end, I'll show the frames to another professional eyewear designer and have him judge them on a
all right, we're going to skip ahead a little bit.
Most sunglasses are all about understated, refined coolness.
Definitely give this guy a view and a like. He deserves it. And if you could watch the beginning of the video to see how he arrives at this result. It's not like, oh, AI, make me Earth, Wind, and Fire sunglasses. It's like, that's not that simple.
James Peo is our critic for today. He's taught me everything I know about.
Pretty cool. Oh, okay. Yeah, so we gotta talk about The Last of Us. This was a pretty good video, where it talks about the viability of a cordyceps pandemic, basically. And let me pull up my chat. I don't know if can I actually pull that up? I don't know where my chat went. I'll have to open up. I'm just not gonna look today. if you don't know, so I didn't play this game. I think my wife has it, and I played like the very first opening scene of it. It was on the I think that's on the PS4 or 3. I'm not even sure. I think it came out in 2013, so I'm not sure where that puts it. But the actual biology like behind the concept is pretty I'm moving this around, is actually pretty interesting. If you don't know anything about cordyceps fungus, it's incredible, really. I mean, all fungus is, but basically the idea is just that through a complicated process, a spore lands on ants, and mostly, but any type of insect, I think, and it has to do with their body temperature. So that's actually something that they get into in this video, why it probably wouldn't happen in humans and why we get few fungal infections. It's mostly just because we have too high of a body temperature. So just fungal infections in mammals in general are like more rare. And but in Last of Us, it's basically a zombie game, but instead of it being like a virus that makes people zombies, it's a fungus, and it transforms them into like different versions, and it works slightly differently. But this Last of Us show is like, okay, yeah, it's a good zombie show, whatever. But like beyond that, I mean, especially the episode 3. I mean, it's like some people love it, some people hate it. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I thought that that the commentary on the psychology of Bill was just like not necessarily commentary, but just the way that they portrayed that, and like the way that just how believable it was, because and it's just epic and totally awesome. I'll never forget when he's watching the news and he goes New World Order. But it's so believable. I've met people like that, and not that they're like gay, but like that's something else that I wanted to say, and it's not people are upset that like this is what's so silly about it. Like I learned a little bit more about it, and apparently it's actually canon to the game that like that Bill had a gay partner and everything. And something that I realized, people who are saying that it's like gay propaganda or whatever, I haven't, it's frustrated me so much I haven't even looked at the first-hand comments, but I've heard that people have been criticizing it, and it's like, if you actually think about it, if him, I think what was his name, Paul? If Paul was gender swapped to be a woman, it would change almost nothing. It would still work. The exact same dialogue would still work. Even the part where he's playing the piano, and he asked who's the girl, and he says there is no girl, and he goes, I know. You know, like him saying I know really wouldn't make sense if he was gender swapped necessarily, but it also kind of could, because it's just like he's just never been with a girl. He just never like managed to open up and be in a relationship with anyone. And so I just thought it was totally masterful, and I'm super excited to see where the series goes, because it's just been great so far. And that makes me open up into this, because I don't like this video. I mean, I generally like George Rockoll Schmidt. I think that's how you say his name. But I didn't care for this video. I thought he was like way too critical on this show, and like especially compared to like how much garbage there is on streaming services now, and how much crap is being produced. It's like we gotta really applaud them where they do it right, and I thought that this was incredible. It's like we put it on like just because it was apparently popular, and oh, it's a video game, and oh, it's actually a good video game adaptation. And I'm not like a huge zombie guy, even though I like Dead Space, and I played Project Zomboid, and like it's interesting to me, but like kind of honestly mostly from an actual like post-apocalyptic perspective, and just that like a survivalism type deal. Like that really interests me, and like how society and infrastructure and manufacturing and all that stuff works, and how that's like so important in the post-apocalypse, even if it happens to be zombies, right? So I just thought that he talks about this thing called NPC syndrome, and one thing that was actually useful in this that I think I will use in the future. He makes a distinction between the difference between a convenience and a contrivance in a narrative, and so a convenience, and something else that finally stuck in my brain, and like you know, we grow up using words not really understanding or thinking about their root. We only think about their meaning, right? Like what it's supposed to be about, and like convene means to come together, you know? So, like, a convenience is just that. It's just two things that happen to come together. But, like, and then a coincidence is similar, but it's two things coinciding at the same time. But, like, when we say coincidence, you know, you'll hear the saying, there is no such thing as coincidence. It's like, well, that's kind of silly, and it's funny because it highlights the colloquialism and the transformation of the definition. In that, when we say coincidence, we mean like coincidence with no prior, with no pulling behind this, like pulling of strings behind the scenes, where like it wasn't a conspiracy or it wasn't set up to always be that way. When we say coincidence, it's like it just, like, it really truly was just a coincidence. It was just two things that happened to happen together, and there was no causal link between them. I don't know, just interesting. And he distinguishes a convenience from a contrivance. So a contrivance is worse, and basically it's just like, it's making someone make a decision to set up a larger scenario, whereas a convenience is just something that, I don't know, you'd have to let him talk about it. It's still kind of like processing in my brain, but it's definitely an important distinction. Oh yeah, so G-Man's pretty good. I like his comment as content. But mostly I just wanted to bring up the fact that the new Dead Space remake is awesome. It's one of my favorite games ever. You know, it's like top 5, and you know, I've been playing it since high school, and I was super skeptical. I'm like, oh great, they're gonna, you know, I'm basically forced to pay $60 to get this game, even though it's gonna be the same game, because I like this game so much, and but it's actually like really good. It's funny because I should have like replayed the original version first, because it seems so different. Like, it seems like totally different as far as so many aspects of the story and how it actually progresses, and how you just, you know, go through the Ishimura. I mean, and it is public knowledge and clear that like they've kind of like opened it up, and that in the past you could go like anywhere on the Ishimura after you opened up, especially at the end of the game. But it wasn't like as much backtracking, and that, like, I say backtracking and people are like, oh god, backtracking, it's lame. Like, not really. Like, the way that they do this, like they keep it fresh, and there's new enemies. The enemies are a lot stronger. They take more damage. The only real complaint that I have with it is that it doesn't seem like it's optimized at all well. I have a pretty powerful machine. I have a 2080 3700X, and it like, it's weird because I can get 60 frames like consistent with ray tracing on and like medium to high settings, but then like it'll just randomly stutter, and then like it'll dip way low, and then like towards the end of the game, and I don't know, like I even actually started turning stuff down because I was desperate at that point, but like it would hit these points, and I don't know if it's something on my end, on my machine, that I'm just not aware of what's happening, although other games haven't been doing this, where it would like, I wasn't monitoring the frames, but it was dropping down to like 10 or 20 frames for like a good 10-second clip, and then in the exact same area it would just rectify itself. So I don't know what's going on. I saw on Reddit that something called the resizable bar. I honestly have no idea what that means. I forget what the acronym is. There's a resizable bar feature that like is not default enabled, that's like in NVIDIA graphics settings. I don't know. I'll have to look further into it. I'm just about to beat the game, so I'm kind of just, before I start fiddling with that, I'm just gonna beat the game. But yeah, it's awesome. It's great. I loved it. Definitely recommend.
Electricity is dangerous.
So this guy is he's something else. Styro Pyro. I don't know. I wouldn't have the balls to build the stuff that he does. But this is a great video. He understands this stuff 10 times better than I do. I'll just be totally upfront and honest about that. And even after watching this whole thing, I'm not like totally sure that I internalized it that well. But like the answer to this question, just quickly, like, is it volts or amps that kill? It's both. It's both, and it's also time, and also area, like, that you get shocked at, and how, and also, as he'll get into in the video, the frequency of the pulses too, which I had no idea. Apparently that's how he gets away with doing what he does in this video, because the electricity that he's working with is like a super high frequency. So for some reason, and I don't know if anyone really knows why, but like high frequency doesn't seem to depolarize your nerve cells the same way, I guess. I don't know. Beats me. This was a great video. I'd say one of my favorite movies of all time, Castaway. Just a great video about. Oop, forgot to like it. Just a great video about the symbolism and philosophy that gets introduced and walked through in this movie, and just I don't know. It was good to be reminded of this movie because it is a classic and timeless, and I don't know, just thought I'd recommend it. And not the strongest ending to my show here, but Ratatasker, definitely a great content creator. Don't agree with all of his takes or opinions, and I haven't actually gotten all the way through this video, but he was pretty much, getting towards the end and is summarizing his thoughts and whatever. I pretty much agree with him. I think that what he says in this is that Breath of the Wild is a great game, but it's not a great Zelda game, and I agree. I did enjoy it, and it was super interesting for a while. I really, really enjoyed Breath of the Wild, but it has almost no Zelda features. It's just not really a Zelda game. I don't know what else to say. It's its own game with inside of pseudo Zelda universe, and I don't know. I just think that this concept needs to be understood, because it's we have to have this is a good example. We need to have opinions and share them, because if we don't, then the world will be changed to something that we don't want it to be changed to, right? So I have the opinion that even though this is a great game, I would like for Zelda to stay closer to what Zelda is has been and what has made it great, and now I'm advocating for tradition. Even though earlier in the video I was talking about how we have to be really careful about nepotism and just blindly following tradition. So I don't know. It's always a balancing act. It's never yes or no. It's never black or white. You can't just split things into all or nothing. It's complicated. So I want a little bit of Breath of the Wild, but a return to the traditional Zelda mechanics and franchise. So, and it's just what's sad about it is that, and you watch this video, is that because of the way that our markets and economy and society are set up, all of the data that Nintendo has on this, even though I say this and a Zelda game that is more like what I'm talking about may be successful, because they don't have the data that would support that possible future, it probably isn't going to happen. Because the thing is that he gets into the statistics here, but it's 50% of Zelda players were introduced to Zelda through Breath of the Wild. So, and the sales numbers are insane on it. So they're so incentivized to continue down the path that they've started here. It's they're building a good plane. They're building a plane that already flew, and now they're gonna doll it up and make it better. And it's always just this combination of how much do you pull off and how much do you put on. So, but anyway, guys, thanks for joining me. Stick around. Next week we'll be doing the same thing, and I think in a few days I'm gonna do an extra live lab. It seems like it's more conducive to doing twice a week rather than this, where it's an hour and a half, and I don't think I want to split it up to make it any smaller than that.